going right now, of course, is the Radical Rant, and I wanted to get into this. I brought this up a little bit yesterday on the show because I got a complaint, and this is a situation I'm seriously asking for input on this because I may be wrong on this one. This has to do with the way people are offended by things, and there's a lot of context to it, and I'm a white guy from the Pacific Northwest, so I may not know what the hell I'm talking about, so anybody wants to help me out on this, I'm happy to take the help. But it has to do with this podcast. It's a part of the Normal Network, and it's the Cannabis States of America. And first of all, of course, that's a play on Confederate States of America, and this is a podcast that's originating out of Florida, and it's very well done, and very professional. Nothing offensive about the podcast at all, but what has bothered this one commenter is the icon they're using, and that I have subsequently put up on the Normal Network, the Normal Stash blog page, and it's the Confederate ganja flag. Okay, and this is their symbol that they're using right now. This flag, of course, slightly resembles the Confederate stars and bars, that is known throughout the South and was the symbol of the Confederacy, but not exactly. What this is a cross called a St. Andrew's cross. Anytime you have a flag that's got that yellow cross across it, that's a St. Andrew's cross. And there's another flag that's very similar to that. It's got a St. Andrew's cross, and that is the flag of Jamaica that I just put up there, right? So the Jamaican flag actually has the St. Andrew's cross and actually more resembles this CSA flag because this CSA flag has two different colors going on in it when the Confederate flag only has one. It's got the red background with the blue cross, and the blue cross has a white border with white stars. This is a yellow cross with no border and green pot leaf. So in my mind, I thought, well, it's kind of a satirical take. It's kind of, of course they're not supporting the Confederacy. They're just saying, we're from the South, but we're for ganja, right? Because they're using the Rasta colors. They're using the Rasta colors in the flag, the red, yellow, and green thing. So to me, it made sense as a satirical take, as a icon for the Southern podcast for pot. I kind of got that. But the person complaining said, this is an offensive symbol. The Confederate flag's an offensive symbol, and when we're trying to reach out to people of color, the last thing we need to do is to throw up another roadblock, to throw up something that they might see as offensive. And I don't know, a lot of times when I get people telling me that people of color would be offended, they're not people of color telling me, right? So I don't know. Again, I'm open to criticism on this one. I may be wrong, but I don't see a problem with this symbol that we're using here. And let me bring up something that I drew up on a blog post that I did on this, and I called it offensive flags because me, I'm a graphics guy. I like to do little graphic design, and I like to see things, graphically to try to understand them. It's how my brain works. So I'm going to bring this up on the screen and just give you the way I kind of, examine this, because I wanted to know what makes it offensive. Is it just the context that we're talking about, a Southern podcast, that they're Southerners? Like, if someone else made this, would it be as offensive, than that it's made by Southerners? But let me get the window up here. So we'll start right up here. And of course, in the left-hand side there, you can see the Confederate flag. That's the actual stars and bars. And right next to it, you can see the Cannabis States flag, which is similar in that they both have an X and 13 items. But aside from that, quite different. The Cannabis States has two different colors in the field and no border on the cross. So they're not that different. And then when I look over here, we got the Cannabis States alongside the flag of Jamaica. I see more similarity there than I see in the other situation. And of course, there's other flags throughout the world that use that St. Andrew's cross, most famously Scotland. Of course, the island nation of Scotland, just like the island nation of Jamaica. So the cross itself isn't the problem, apparently, because lots of flags have these crosses. In fact, I started looking out through the United States, and in the southern states, Florida and Alabama use that same exact cross in theirs. Now, Florida's different. Florida puts an icon, just one icon over the cross, and Alabama doesn't have any icons over the cross. So it's not offensive. Nobody's offended by the Florida or Alabama flag. So apparently a cross is okay, and even having a symbol on the cross is okay, as long as it's one symbol on the cross, not 13, apparently. That's the issue. But as we go over to Mississippi, Mississippi still holds the stars and bars in its flag there. South Carolina used to, they got rid of it. Georgia used to, they got rid of it because of the controversy. But yeah, people say this is offensive. So again, I've got to interpret that it's, 13 symbols inside the X that make the difference. Well, what if Well, just what if I got a podcast from someone called Ganja Today? Let's say it was a Jamaican podcast, and they used the Jamaican flag, but they put 13 pot leaves over the cross in the Jamaican flag. Now, would that be offensive? Because they're not Southern, and maybe they're putting 13 pot leaves up there to represent, I don't know, 13 articles of belief they have about ganja. Who knows? But would the symbol itself be offensive because it's got an X with 13 items in it? Would it? And again, just to be silly here, I came up with a few others I thought of. Let's say we got that same ganja flag, the same Jamaican flag, but they're from the South and they made it. Right? Maybe they used to live in Jamaica and they moved to Alabama. Can they use that flag now? Or what if I take the Alabama flag and I put 5 pot leaves in the cross? I put 5 pot leaves in the cross. It's not 13, so is that okay? Can I do that? How about if they're not even from the South at all? Let's say that we had one called the Christian States Podcast, and they used a red field with a blue cross with a white border, but then put little Christian crosses in the X, and not 13 of them, but only 9 of them. Would that be in and of itself offensive? Or what if we took the Scottish St. Andrew's cross, the blue field with the white cross, and put 8 stars in the cross and 1 big pot leaf? Is that offensive? I mean, I'm being a little facetious here with this, but there is a point to the argument here, and that is, how far do we take offense? Like, if we took down their flag for cannabis states and just left the initials CSA, and then someone complains that, oh, CSA, Confederate States of America, and they're from the South, are we going to take that down too? How far should offense go? And is there a benefit or a loss? I mean, is this good or bad for the movement for me to have a podcast with this kind of symbology on it? If it were just me, if it were a flag I made, I would probably say, okay, benefit of the doubt, I'll take it down. But this is something that was submitted by someone who's putting their time and effort on the line for free, speaking out in one of the toughest places it is to be a cannabis consumer. And I'm really loath to tell him that our audience found his little flag satire just a little too touchy. So I'd really like to get some input on this. I've got a blog post on it at the blog at stash.normal.org, as well as a poll. Last I looked, the poll was 80-20 saying no, it wasn't offensive. So check it out, stash.normal.org. Let me know what you think, because this is a topic I need some education on. All right, for Cannabis Carry and Ganja John, I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us here. Stay tuned.